This is the Worldly Wellbeing podcast. I'm Holly.
And I'm Luke.
Through the conversations we're having on this podcast, we're seeking to connect with what worldly wellbeing means. And by listening today, you're joining us.
So, welcome to the last episode of season 3 of the Worldly Wellbeing podcast.
I really wish that, I don't wish for you guys that you could hear us, because despite this being about the 10 millionth time we've done an introduction, I still got it wrong.
Yep, I mean, that is the joys of being able to record something ahead of time and slightly tweak what you have done.
I mean, by slightly tweak, we mean just cut out a whole load.
This is the second time that we've tried to record this particular episode, because last week I was in Albania and the internet was so bad that all we did was plan our friend's hen party instead.
Shout out to Pops.
Pops, it's planning.
Yeah, but I'm going to be honest, dear listeners, I'm sure you agree with me that we don't feel too sorry for Luke and his bad internet, because he was out the country. He was in 30-degree heat.
I had managed to flee despite all of the testing requirements. I was enjoying good food, good friends, good weather. And now I am stuck in isolation stations in my flat because I have to isolate. Not because I am diseased, but because I am following guidelines.
Boo-hoo for you. That's all I can say.
Soz.
So somehow we have reached the end of season 3. And actually today on my drive home, Luke, I was just thinking as the sun was blaring down and I actually had to activate air conditioning in my car, which is a big deal. I was just thinking, gosh, do you remember when we recorded episode 1 of season 3? And it was still during the time when the day was shorter than the night and it was Arctic. What a long way we've come, both in terms of weather and in terms of podcast.
Yeah, and just thinking of that makes me shudder slightly, not because of the podcast, but because of how bleak a time that was. And it's so good to be now coming out of that. And yeah, it has been an absolutely glorious day here in Blighty. I'm very grateful for having a little bit of outside space in London. But it feels like we have travelled quite a distance this season, and both in terms of who we've spoken to, but also in some of the areas that we've covered and the types of conversations that we've been having.
I would agree. I think the difference between the sunny positivity that we have at the end, and I think we were feeling slightly grey at the very beginning, but I think I'm really grateful to all of the guests we've had this season who've joined us on that journey. This is sounding really cliche now.
I know, I'm just going to, we're just pouring forth gratitude and joy, and everything's like sunshine and roses and skipping through some kind of meadow. But I think it is really important to say a big thank you to all of our guests so far, because the feedback that we've been having from you, dear listeners, and from the guests themselves this season has actually been a really fulfilling one, and you've really enjoyed listening to the thoughts and wisdom from our guests as we've discussed issues ranging from journalistic freedom right through to palm oil use in our last episode, stopping off in Japan on the way. We've covered a breadth of topics, and it's been really great to kind of meet new people by doing so, and also hearing back from you as to what you've really enjoyed.
And talking of meadow, I just have to share my little bit of excitement and joy. I've just got back from a bank holiday weekend away, and a box from Bloomtown had arrived, my order, and I've just opened it up, and I've got so much excitement right now. If you heard the last episode, I was just banging on about how I love the packaging and the smells, and I've actually just been spritzing, and I smell like a meadow right now. So if anyone hasn't listened to last week's episode, do go take a listen, and do go and check out Bloomtown, because I am in a cloud of meadow delights. And the reason I say meadow is because my favourite scent is called meadow.
How many times are you going to say meadow?
I don't know. Let's see. The more we say
meadow,
the more meadow is going to sound like a weird word that we've just concocted. But let's go with the flow in the meadow.
So what has been your particular highlight this season, Holly?
So, as a general kind of point, what I've really loved, I mean, it goes without saying, and I'm sure listeners can probably gather that we do love to chat, that our conversations, keeping them under an hour, is just impossible. Usually, when Luke and I schedule a meeting, quote unquote, we will say an hour, but we know that that means at least two, because about an hour and a half will be us chatting, and then we'll finally get into serious mode. So talking for a long time has never been a problem, but what I've really loved in general this season is that every podcast during recording, we've suddenly noted the time and just said, my gosh, like we need to stop recording because we could go on forever. But that feeling of there's so much more we can talk about, which I hope, and from feedback, it sounds like other people have had that sense of momentum in terms of a conversation and wanted to continue that or take it on a slightly different direction. So momentum is the word I'm going with.
Momentum in your meadow, babes.
Oh my gosh. I mean, my alliteration is just flying off the shelves right now.
We all know that I am a fan of GCSE grade alliteration, so love it.
Magnificent meanderings. Oh, that was the wrong word. Magnificent momentum within the meadow. Gosh.
But whilst meandering.
Yeah. What about you?
I think if I was going to pick a word for this season, following on from your picking your choice, I think I would opt for wisdom, in that although we've covered a broad breadth of topics, and none of them have really on paper seemed to connect. They all felt very distinct and very kind of, they were offering something unique, and they all definitely did, but still there was that almost golden thread that was weaving through, and that was a real sense of wisdom that was being shared through experience, through professional work, and I really found that not only a joy to be part of those conversations, but also came away having learned things and feeling challenged as well. And as we say in the beginning of every podcast, you know, this is a conversation, and as you just mentioned, Holly, we hope that people feel inspired, and it sounds like you have been, to go away and continue those conversations. And I think that looks like lots of different, it can kind of materialize in lots of different ways. For me, conversations are like this, but they're also kind of conversations that you have with more static things, like, you know, whether you're reading a book or listening to another podcast. And I felt really inspired to kind of build on the wisdom that's been shared with us, and to kind of go away and do more of that work. So wisdom would be my word.
Would you like to put that alongside another W starting word to get a bit of alliteration in there?
I mean, clearly this is year 10 GCSE grade alliteration. I would maybe say wonderful wisdom. Can you go wholesome wisdom? It begins with the same letter, but it doesn't sound right, does it?
No, but that's trick alliteration, and that's higher level, I'd say. You're approaching AF.
That's
there.
year 11. There you go. Maybe a more inspirational word will drop into my thoughts shortly.
I think what has been really wonderful with all our guests is they've shared their wisdom in such a humble and open and warm way that, you know, I still feel really inspired and humbled by some of the people that we've had in. When I think back to Brandon in the beginning, who is just stepping out so bravely and so successfully in the field of work that he's trying to make a difference in, through to right at the end, Priya, who started a wonderful company. Like, all of these people that we've spoken to along the way have got so much to share, and they're such incredible people. They've shared in a really authentic way.
And I think those people, that way of sharing, that authenticity, is really important when we have conversations like this, because it's so easy to kind of sit aloft an ivory tower of morality and say, oh, this is the way you should behave, this is what you should and shouldn't do, you know, I think the the historic stereotype, and I'm caveating what I'm saying now, of someone who might choose veganism or something is, oh, well, if you don't do it my way, then you're a terrible human being. And what we've perhaps been able to gain from this last season of conversations is more about where can we learn from one another, where can we challenge ourselves to behave differently and do so humbly and seek to kind of make an active change, but also where can we share with one another and realize that actually we're all doing, we're all on this journey together, meandering through our meadows. And so I wonder where we can continue to learn and grow. And I think that conversation piece is really important. And I've been really encouraged to hear stories of people carrying on the conversations with people at home, people at work, and wanting to kind of learn more and grow more on the topics that we've been covering.
So I've mentioned our bookending episodes, but are there any other things or people or topics or anything else that came up, Luke, that particularly stood out to you? Across our 6 guests in this season?
I think in many ways, again, I'm going to pick another word, but I think in many ways, the real sense of bravery that many of our guests displayed in terms of not only authenticity to themselves, but also fulfilling their passions and their goals. You've already mentioned Brandon, but I think that also speaks to Alice's work in terms of journalistic integrity and particularly fighting for gender equality in the profession, but more broadly elsewhere too. I can think of Kanav and the experiences of LGBTQ plus people in India and the complexities of that, the historical complexities, but also the complexities on a personal level and the bravery it takes to reconcile your identity with what's perhaps presented in the world around you. But also people like Oscar who, took a chance, went and did something different, moved to a different country, started a different job, started their own podcast. Actually, the bravery that has been displayed by our guests, I think, has been really profound and motivational to me as well, encouraging to kind of think, where are the steps that I can take to kind of step out a little bit more?
On that note, just wanted to say, Oscar, I noticed you've broken both of your arms, probably doing something very brave. So we hope that you recover soon. I
did not see this.
He's double casted.
Some kind of biking or, mountain accident. Okay, Oscar, yeah. Good luck being double casted. So what about you?
You've actually stolen a really great point, Lukey Babes, with your bravery.
Thoughts about it.
Yeah, thanks. Because I remember being really struck after our first 2 interviews that we were speaking to 2 people who'd received online abuse for literally who they are. But you're also right that bravery comes in all forms as well. And speaking to Dwight, that really sprung to mind as well. Taking the chance on doing something new and something different, but taking the chance on a passion, on a creativity, on something that you then turn into a tool for speaking out. And so we've seen, perhaps with Brandon and Alice, they're using their voice for change. But of course, me being down the arty line, really got so much from speaking to Dwight, who is using creativity to make a difference and to stand out. I really enjoyed the kind of the creative vibes that we got coming through the podcast as well, right through to Priya at the end, and the creativity and the using her hands to create something, which I obviously love.
The project that started as a little lockdown hobby continues to take up more and more of our time, joyously so.
Yeah.
And we have some exciting plans for our next batch of episodes, with some already recorded, particularly looking at small businesses and how small businesses can grow and develop and what they've learnt and how you can support them. So we're really excited to bring in some fabulous new guests for you to hear from. And then there are some other exciting projects that we're working on that we cannot disclose too much information on about right now. But we are very excited to kind of ponder and receive some expert advice on what we can and can't do. This next season is going to be a lot closer to this current one in terms of its release date. So that's largely because we had so many wonderful people that we needed to factor in enough time to get it all recorded and sorted. So we will keep you posted as to when to expect new episodes, but they will be coming very, very soon.
And I guess the other thing to say is, if you haven't checked out the Instagrams or websites or Twitters of any of our guests that we've had, we'd really encourage you to, because they're all doing some great work and they've got some cool stuff to look at.
And we want to hear from you in terms of what you've loved or maybe have loved slightly less this season, this time around of episodes. But also, other people that you want us to speak to? Do you want us to have a chat with someone that you're a particular fan of? Or maybe someone actually who you find quite challenging? So if you have any thoughts or suggestions, and you can obviously get in touch with us via our Instagram channels, but also via the Worldly Wellbeing website, which is currently in the redevelopment process. So there'll be more on that soon too.
Yeah, so you may go and check it out now, but it may not be as fabulous as we're hoping it soon will be. So please excuse us in our little renovation stage.
Life is a journey, and we are but in one stage of it.
Oh, exactly. So until then, we wish you many happy meanderings in your meadows. We are going to leave you with a few outtakes. As in every season, I have a dedicated folder to outtakes. I'm going to point out that about 98% of the clips in the outtake folders are from Luke and I separately recording the intro and the outro, because we managed to stay reasonably professional sounding during the interviews, but somehow that all goes to shit when it's just the two of us.
Yes, I mean, maybe we could only just kind of condense the professionalism into that kind of 30 to 45 minute window, and then it just becomes too much. Maybe we just revert to teenagers. It could be a little bit of both, but consequently it means that we have wonderful snippets of us proving our humanity by making a few mistakes, some of which are not suitable for airing, but the majority of which are fine.
I mean, I think that was generous. I'd say the majority of which are really for no other human consumption. But I will slot in a few just for your own entertainment. And just, as Luke said, to remind you that we are shockingly real, everyday humans.
So enjoy those outtakes, and remember, the episodes are all still online. So if you're a new listener to the Worldly Wellbeing podcast, you can head back and listen to some of the back catalogue. You can also find us, as we've already mentioned, on social media. You can find me on Instagram as @LocomotionLuca.
You can find me at Rome Away From Home, Rome as in the city, ROME. Oh, and all of those words have underscores in between.
And of course, as we mentioned, the Worldly Wellbeing website.
And something that we always forget to say, and we really need to be better at, #Worldly Wellbeing.
Oh, yeah. Talk about it. #Worldly Wellbeing. So hashtag it up. Oh,
just search it. Just #Worldly Wellbeing. Let's make it a thing.
We will bid you adieu and see you very, very soon for more wisdom, bravery, meadow meandering, momentum,
conversation, joy,
love.
Let's go. Ciao, ciao for now.
Peace.
Au revoir. Oh, the outtakes folder is just going to be brilliant for season 3. And by joining us today, arsehole. I mean, this is absolute shit. What am I saying?
I don't know what else do you want me to say at this point.
Okay, honestly, I really need to go to the toilet soon. We need to wrap this up.
To just scratch that Japanese itch just a little bit. That sounds disgusting. That sounds like a disease. Why can't we do that?
I'll see if I can pop it in.
I don't know what I can.
Oh, this is a bloody mess now. Soz everyone. Okay.
Game faces. Wow.
It's hideous.
I'm gonna pee.